Thank you so much, Ron. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So happy to see all of you in the room this morning. And before we kick off this panel with these phenomenal women that I am so honored to be with, I wanted to stop and pause and just say thank you. Thank you so much. A year ago, I walked into AWD for the very first time, and I had no idea what to expect. I sat on a panel, and I was asked a question. If you're an internal wholesaler and you'd like to become an external wholesaler, let us help you. So when it got to my time, I said, God must be watching out over me today. 3 weeks before I walked into the room, I had my first interview for a regional director position for Northeast and New England. And I thought to myself, what perfect timing. Here's how you can help me. And I asked for that help and I asked for that support. As soon as I got off the panel, Mr. Marlone Hall pulled me aside and said, we got you. And he was not kidding. My power trio kicked into effect of Terrell Golden, Keon Scott, and Charles Samuel. They wrapped me up. They helped to make sure that I was prepared not only technically, but emotionally, and helped me through that second interview. And it was mind-blowing to see the looks on my panelists' faces when they said, how did you prepare? And I told them that competitors from some of our largest competition helped me to prepare for this. So thank you so much. And a year ago in August, I was offered the role, and I'm in my rookie year of being an external wholesaler. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Not only those three gentlemen, but every single person. So many of you have come up to me over the course of the last 2 days and said, congratulations, congratulations, congratulations. My cup is overflowing and I am so blessed and so fortunate. But I don't want to be greedy with the time. As the people that know me best, I hate being the center of attention, so I want to turn the attention to my beautiful panelists. And I'd like each of you just to briefly introduce yourself, tell us what company that you currently work in, what your role is, and how long you've been in that role, please.
Sure, I'll start since I have the mic. So I'm Victoria Verity. I'm regional investment consultant at T. Rowe Price. I cover the Long Island, Hudson Valley, Westchester area for us in New York. And I've been at T. Rowe now for 2 years. I've been in the industry close to 17 years. Prior to joining T. Rowe Price, I spent about 12 years over at Legg Mason before taking on my territory in New York. I've covered parts of the country, pretty much all over the place over the course of my career. Before covering New York, I covered states like Minnesota, Wisconsin, North and South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. And so I've been around and seen a lot of this country and a lot of our clients, and so happy to share kind of my experiences today.
Hello. Tracy Hawk. I'm with Lincoln Financial Group. There we go. I have been at Lincoln for almost 15 years. I've been in the external wholesaler position for 3 years. This is my third year. And I cover North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia.
Hi, I'm Lauren Character. I'm the Managing Director of the Northeast region for Pacific Life in the RIA channel, and I have been with them since October of last year.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ariel Barber. I am a Regional Vice President at Prudential on the annuity side. I have been with Prudential now 5 years and I think it's 3 days. And I've been an external wholesaler since January of this year. So last year was my first AWD conference. I sat in a similar conference room in DC as an internal wholesaler, was very inspired, and now this is my second conference sitting as an external wholesaler out in the field, and I'm truly blessed.
Amazing, amazing, amazing ladies. So Ariel, you shared a little bit of your personal journey. I wonder if you could share a little bit more of your personal journey and the biggest challenge you find as a wholesaler and also the biggest triumph.
Yes, no, absolutely. So some of the biggest challenges is just, I know we talked about yesterday about imposter syndrome. So I've experienced that for, I mean, my entire journey. Going into Prudential, I was 1 year or 1 month out of college. So I just graduated college. I was a former student athlete, sociology major, did not have a finance background or accounting background whatsoever. And I remember starting with a class of around 10 to 15 individuals, all had accounting backgrounds, and I thought, I do not belong here. But I really just put my head down and tried to persevere and kept that kind of momentum towards my career and was able to progress into becoming an external. But I've experienced that imposter syndrome. But some of the biggest triumphs, honestly, it brings me back to just passing my series exams. I mean, again, I started as someone who didn't know what an annuity was 5 years ago. And to look at where I am now, it's been a really great experience.
Awesome. Lauren, would you like to share?
Yes, so I attended my first AWD conference last year in DC, and my first real experience in terms of public speaking was actually on the women's panel last year. So after that, I received a lot of positive feedback, and everyone was super encouraging in terms of just how I conducted myself and my thoughts and the passions that I was able to display. And I ended up getting the attention from my now manager, who I don't think she's here yet, Jennifer Griffin from Pacific Life, and had an introduction as well from Orion, who's now my counterpart in the Southeast. And it is just tremendous how just that one conference completely changed the trajectory of my entire life. It's something that I didn't think I would ever be doing. I remember last year I spoke with Ron, and he was like, well, when you come next year, you'll be an external. And I'm like, okay. And so now when I saw him yesterday, I'm like, hey, I'm back. I'm an external. I did it. But yeah, it's completely changed, my entire life, my career, and I think it's for the very first time I'm able to utilize all the talents that I've been wanting to, really display in one role. So I think it's something that I'm going to do definitely until I retire, maybe in a different company or a different, product line, but it is really a great opportunity, and I cannot thank Marlon enough for putting this together and just really giving us that platform to just change our lives.
That was great. So this is my first time attending AWD, so I don't have the story of, where I was last year, but my story is a little crazy. The fact that I'm up here right now is insane. Looking out, I just want to say this, looking out and seeing so many people that look like me and everyone's looking so good, I never had this opportunity. I mean, we're always presenting, as you know, as wholesalers. I'm used to looking at the same kind of people, so seeing this kind of audience is amazing. So I truly enjoy this. But so like I said, I've been with Lincoln for 15 years. Started right out of college. I was in customer service. I moved over to processing, and I would always see these people in the elevator in our Greensboro office that always looked really cool. And I was like, who are these people? I paid attention to what floor they were going to, and I was like, okay, that's 12th floor. So then I figured out they were sales, and I was like, I never saw anyone that looked like me go on that floor. So for a while, I would be like, I don't know if I could do that. But I stepped out of myself, and I reached out to the manager of that department, and I just went to her and asked her questions about the role, and I sat with some internals, and I learned about what they actually did in sales, and I was like, oh yeah, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to be. So I started that journey being an inbound first, you do your licensing, all that good stuff. And once I became an inbound, my manager's manager was automatically saying, you're going to be an external. And I just thought that was the craziest thing. Why would she say that to me? I barely know what an external is. I didn't really know what externals did. So I fought it for a while. I became an internal, did a great job at that. I traveled with my external a few times, and I just thought, what a cool job. You get to do all the things that I love, which is talking to people, educating people, because at one point I thought I would be a teacher. So having all of that in one role was really awesome to me. But the thing again was I had never seen a woman of color as an external. So I was just like, I don't know if I would be accepted into this. I really didn't know. But I had the support of some amazing people at Lincoln, and they backed me, and they're like, this is what you're doing. They pretty much pushed me into doing the program that you have to do at Lincoln to even be an external. And I did that, and you go ahead, you go in front of NSMs and DSMs that are like running these different divisions, and everyone wanted me on their team. I remember it was crazy to me. I couldn't believe that these people were wanting me, little me who I thought I didn't even have a chance. So it just changed my whole perspective of what we do here and how important it is to see people like us in these type of roles.
So I think if I was to think about my biggest challenge, I would just say it was me. My confidence in myself, my ability to do this job. I know my panelists, they've all mentioned not being able to see others that look like us in these types of roles, and really not being able to visualize my future in this career path. And I would say I struggle with that to this day, continually. It's something that I have to continue to champion myself for, to know that I'm doing the right things, and that I am here for a reason, and I have, done the things that I need to do in order to be successful in this career. And so for my biggest challenge, I would say it's just been myself and kind of that battle with myself to believe in myself and believe in my abilities. I would say my biggest triumph, and we talked a lot yesterday in the women's retreat, which was amazing for all of you who were attending, and Marcia had mentioned sponsors, right? And those are those people who you don't know are watching you. They're paying attention to you. They're paying attention to your potential. They're paying attention to your work ethic. I come from a sports background, and so I think that translates and kind of that process oriented mindset to my career, and just kind of putting your head down and doing what you need to do. And you don't realize all the time that people are watching you. And people that you don't know are watching you. And I think if I was to mention my biggest triumph, it would probably be, getting my first shot about being a wholesaler in the field when I was back at Legg Mason. And it was having a manager approach me and say, hey, I've discussed this with some of the other leadership team, and we think that you should take this role. And it was nothing that I had ever thought about. I was on kind of the wholesaler path, but I still didn't really believe that I was actually going to be an external at some point. And I needed that person to say, we see the potential in you, and we believe that you will be successful in this career path, and you have what it takes to do it, for me to really start to believe that in myself. And so that was kind of a career-changing moment for me, where I said, you know what, I can do this, I do have what it takes. And from there, I've been wholesaling now for close to 8 years in the field. And so I guess those would be my two parts.
Awesome, ladies. Awesome, ladies. Thank you so much for being willing to share. One of my favorite parts about being at AWD is just listening to everyone's story and everybody's journey, because I think we all know that wholesaling isn't something that you fall into naturally. You have to be encouraged along, unless you've got someone in the family or a legacy. So I'm always fascinated to hear everybody's journey story. So thank you so much. Shifting over slightly, we talked a little bit yesterday about being our authentic selves. How do you all find balancing that authentic self with professionalism in your interactions with your advisors? So this is when I first started in sales, the term authentic self, I don't even think it was talked about. I think I always struggled when I was younger about trying to be like someone who didn't look like me, didn't grow up like I did, and struggling in that path because I wasn't being true to who I was. I think once you realize that,
I think some of the best advice, and I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, was someone told me, like, you're a person, they're a person, be a person when you talk to them, be yourself. People relate to that, and I think now, and at this point in my career, I have 3 little kids, and that makes my life pretty hectic, right? And I'm like, originally when I had my daughter, my first, it was like, well, I can't look like, I need to act like I don't have a kid, right? Like, I need to pretend like I don't have a kid. No one can know that I have children, and I need to just do this job and pretend like I was, 10 months ago. And that just doesn't exist, right? And so it's relaxing. It's kind of this weight off of your chest as women, as females, as Black wholesalers, that, we have so many other things that we have to kind of prep for in advance of what we do day to day, and taking that weight off of you to be able to say, well, when you get there, when you are in your day, be yourself. That is so relaxing. And I think once you realize that, once you start to do that, you have so many other competing priorities in your life and things that add stress to your life. Being who you are shouldn't be one of them. And so it took me too long to realize that, but once I did, it's something that has propelled me to be able to put those efforts, that stress, into other areas of my life, and to be able to be more successful in those types of areas. And so that would kind of be my recommendation.
Yeah, so being your authentic self, that's always the challenge in this industry. And it shouldn't be, like you were saying, like, it should not be a challenge to just be who you are. But for me, when you think about when you're trying to be who you think you should be, I mean, that's very stressful. I'm sure we've all related to that at some point, and it's just not worth it. And then you find yourself, the way you're responding and interacting is strange, and people can pick up on that, right? If you're not being true to yourself, even if they don't know you, the energy is strong, and people can pick up when you're a little off, when you're maybe not being honest and true. So for me, that's a big thing for me, is I'm always going to be who I am. Now, am I going to, like, when I hear authentic self, am I going to act with my reps like I do with my girlfriends when we're hanging out? Like, no. Am I going to talk to reps, like I may talk to my husband or, family members? Absolutely not. I mean, I have to edit myself in some part, because you have to know your audience. So be your authentic self, but still know your audience, the way you're communicating, the language that you're using. We should all be able to talk in a proper way and still be authentic to yourself. So I'm a mother also, and I find that when you are able to share things that are happening in your life, I'm fine saying what we're going to be doing as a family. When I go on vacation, I tell my reps that. And it really opens the relationship, because now they're like, oh yeah, well, I've been there, I've done that. And when you can have those kind of conversations, it breaks the wall down, and it builds that relationship even more, to where they're going to be like, I actually want to do business with her because she's real, I relate to her. We may not look alike, because I don't look like many of the reps I work with, but that doesn't matter, because they see, okay, like, she's a real person. They do things as well, and that's how that's how I say to be your authentic self.
I think the best way of really bringing your authentic self to this position is to really study how you manage relationships in your personal life. Because when we say, be your authentic self, you may say, okay, well, like she mentioned, like, she's not the same person when she's out with her girlfriend. She may be a different person at work. But one thing that I've gotten really good at over the past few months is just studying how I naturally create relationships in my personal life. So for me, I have a really, really good memory. So if I meet you, and you tell me some little detail about you, I'm going to remember that. And so I do the same thing with my reps, and I just try to be as personable and as charming and as funny as I naturally am, with anyone to really win them over. And so I was a little nervous initially when I found out that I was going to be managing the Northeast, because I'm like, oh, these guys are like super serious. They're New Yorkers. They're going to be so mean to me. And it actually works in my favor, because even the ones who are a little grumpy, they're like, oh man, she's so sweet. I can't be mean to her. I'm like, that's right. You can't, because I'm so charming. So I think just, really stepping outside of that and saying, okay, well, how do I naturally do this in my real life? Because it becomes a lot easier, and those relationships becomes a lot stronger when you're just, actually building the same relationships the same way. So it's worked pretty well for me so far. So that's what my advice would be.
I would definitely agree and add to some of the other panelists had said, being true and being like your authentic self can be somewhat a little challenging, trying to navigate that and having that balance between how would you, again, interact with friends and family, and then how would you interact with your advisors. I definitely agree, being personable and remembering those small details, it really goes a long way. But also what I would say is I did spend a good portion when I first started trying to compare myself to competitors that I saw out in the field. And I found the very thing that I was comparing was the thing that made me different. So every other competitor, right? Majority of the competitors that I'm coming up against in the DMV area don't look like me. And the reason why advisors remember my name, whether it's she's the Prue girl, she's a girl, right? She's with Prudential and she's a woman, I don't really care, but they remember who I am, and that's what makes me different. So that's what I try and harp on, and that's the advice I would give.
Now, ladies, one thing that I struggled with in my rookie year as an external is really kind of trying to balance my work-life balance. I want to tear this role apart. I want to make that money. You've told me I can sign my own paycheck. I don't have a cap. Awesome. But how do you all find balancing that work and that lifestyle? Because I've got 3 children. I know many of you have children, and whether you have children or not, we all have outside lives. So I'm really hoping that you can give some advice to me of how you all manage that work-life balance.
So I just started as well. So I'd say my work-life balance is also, I'm open to taking advice too, but my work-life balance is also, it's getting there. I think it's really hard starting out because you want to be the best that you can be. And again, I come from a student athlete background, so I'm super competitive and I'm competing against myself. I try to remember that. I'm not competing against everyone else at my company. I'm competing with myself. But at the end of the day, when you think about how long your career is going to be as an external wholesaler out in the field, 10, 20, 30 years, 5 years, whatever the amount is, you have to think about also what's most important, right? So your family, your friends. And so I've tried to remember that, because you can get easily caught up in the day-to-day, put in, several hours throughout the day. But also at the end of the day, when your career is done, who's going to be there when you're done? So I try to remember that.
I think the best approach to work-life balance is not being in the mindset that sitting in front of your computer longer or not taking any breaks is going to guarantee you more success. Because that's one thing that I've learned, especially as we've been in this virtual environment for the past, 3 years at this point, is that I initially thought okay, during these hours, I need to be at my laptop prospecting, doing all this work, which is true. But if there's never any really balance in terms of you being able to step away, mentally take a break, literally put your mind on anything else other than work for a few hours, that's really where I've started to see a lot of success, because I have a little 4-year-old son who has a lot of energy. So when he's home with me, he's really good about kind of taking me out of that grind work mindset, and I think that's going to be the biggest challenge as he gets older, is kind of finding that balance between that. But I want to eventually get to the point where I'm bringing him along with me so that he can see that, hey, my mom, she works, and I think the more that you can incorporate your personal life into your work life, that way you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and you're also garnishing that relationship with your family or your kids or husband as time goes on, to really help things in the long run.
I like that. You know, when I hear work-life balance, I'm always like, I mean, there's really no way to balance it when you're a wife, a mother, you know, working full-time, traveling here and there. So I live by, you know, wherever my feet are, that's where I am. That is what I focus on at that time. Sure, sometimes I may be more focused on work than I am my family, but my family is my support. I have an amazing husband. My son loves what I do. He actually told me the other day he wants to do what I do. So I almost cried when he said that. But, you know, they're so involved in what I do. They want to know who I'm meeting with. How'd your meeting go? My son will be like, what are your sales looking like? Where are you at right now? You know, it's just like, we're all like just grinding, right? So it's just, it becomes just who we are. So, you know, when I'm with my family, though, that's where I am. And we have this awesome opportunity with this role where you have the flexibility. So I can put on my calendar, like me and Joyce were talking yesterday, we'll put things on the calendar and put maybe like aliases, or I think Marcia said that as well. Somebody said aliases. So I'll put like private appointments, and that's me going to my son's school to volunteer or whatever I need to do to get that time in. If I know I'm going to be traveling coming up, I'm going to make sure I get more personal time in with my family before I leave. And that's what I do for myself. But again, the big thing for me is wherever your feet are, that is where you are. So it's work time or it's personal time. That's it.
I would probably at most agree with you on that, because you know, you get that. Yeah, like I mentioned, a mom of three, so you get that guilt, right? You're away. You don't feel as involved as you should be week to week, depending on how busy you are, what meetings you have, if you have dinner appointments, if you're, overnight, depending on your territory. And the way that I process it is to say, I am 100% a mom, a wife when I'm home, and I'm 100%, a Rick when I'm working in the field, and having that separation, because I used to try to do it both, where I was kind of with my family and trying to work, and that for me doesn't work, because now I'm giving partial percentages to each side, right? Nobody's getting my full attention, and having that separation for me and knowing that, yes, I'm away from my family, but the reason I'm away from my family is benefiting my family, and if I am going to be away from my family, then I'm going to be working, right? Like, I'm not just taking this time to just run around and do nothing, right? I'm putting the time in, I'm putting the work in, it's benefiting my family, and I need to give it all I have, because it is taking away time from my family. And so when I think about work-life balance, it's hard. If you're out here, whether you're a father, whether you're a mother, whether you have parents at home, whether you are just juggling, your regular life, it's hard to figure out when to kind of pull back and when to push on different things. But I will tell you, I truly believe in my heart that there is no better career out there. Full stop. You have full control over your schedule. You have full control over your life, on your own development. You have just an open array, day to day, things change, you're continually learning. I never feel kind of stuck that, I'm not going anywhere, or this isn't progressing, because every day is a new day. And so having belief in what you're doing as far as your career and as far as your role, I think is important when you think about work-life balance, because you then have that ability to separate and put all you can into your work, and then when you're home, you can put all you can into your kids. And for me, as a mother, I have two little girls, they see me working, right? I saw my mom working, and that had an impact on me, and now my girls can see me working. And so that fills my cup, that drives me every day. And so I think just having that delineation and knowing that where my feet are, I love that, but I'm present where I am, and giving my full self each place will allow you to have that balance and to feel fulfilled on both sides.
Thank you, ladies, for the amazing advice. I'd like to shift gears just a little bit. So as I look around the room, I see a lot of amazing, phenomenal people, but what I don't see enough of is more people that look like us as females. So talk to me a little bit about how you think your individual organizations can help to bring more Black women into the workplace.
So, as I mentioned, I'm with T. Rowe Price, and I'm so happy to be there. T. Rowe Price has intention in what they're doing. A reason I am at T. Rowe is from a number of people that are in this room today who were intentional in reaching out to me and saying, we need more people who look like you. We need more Black female wholesalers, and we want you as part of our team. And so I think if I was going to say anything, T. Rowe is intentional in their direction in having, Black and brown faces across the organization, but also intentful in particular areas. And I think that is why they've been successful and driving. I think overall, I've been having a lot of conversations through the women's retreat yesterday with a lot of young females who are here. And, I talked to them, well, what's your role? What are you doing? And, I'm an internal, or I just started. And, do you want to be an external wholesaler? No. I definitely don't want to be an external wholesaler. And so, my question is, why? And I know that feeling because I had that feeling when I was just getting started, like, well, I'm doing this, but I'm not going to be an external wholesaler. I don't think that that's the job for me. And if that's you, if you're sitting here and you're thinking that way and thinking about taking another path, I would tell you to ask yourself, why? What about the role? Why don't you want to do it? And then talk to someone who's doing it. I'm happy to talk to you about the life for me and traveling around and being in this industry. And I think finding out more about why you don't want to do something is important. And if you can't come up with 3 solid reasons, then maybe it's worth a look. And I think from an organizational standpoint, as I mentioned, T. Rowe, I think they are phenomenal. I'm happy to be associated with T. Rowe Price, and I think, the intentionality of reaching out to particular groups is the reason why they've been so successful. And so
So like I said earlier, I am with Lincoln Financial Group, and I'll have to say, from when I started in sales to what I'm seeing now at Lincoln, and they're reaching out and their programs with diversity, I don't even think we had that when I was going through sales. So seeing it now, to say, what could your company be doing more of? To be completely candid with you, I feel they're doing everything they can be doing. And I say that to speak to the women of color, the brown, Black women out there, and reach out of yourself. And if these companies are putting this money in for these types of programs, this is now your time to figure out who you are, what you want to do. Build your brand, build your confidence, be reaching out to people that look like you. We're here to help. Build that confidence and learn and polish yourself and be where you want to be, so that when that time comes, you will be ready and you won't have to say, well, I don't think I can do that. And like I was saying earlier, the challenges and all that good stuff, there was no one that looked like me, so I never thought I could do it. But I decided to come out of myself and challenge myself and say, I'm doing it. Like, whatever happens, at least I tried. So the companies are Lincoln specifically, again, I feel like they're doing an amazing job of trying to make sure that they're recruiting more people that look like us. But again, I ask that the women really take advantage of these programs and be serious about it, have serious intention, and use these types of events to maximize. If you have questions that you want to ask, we're all pretty candid. All the other external wholesalers here, we're going to be real with you because it's that type of event. We don't have to worry about, our DSMs or NSMs looking over our shoulder and saying how we respond to things. So we'll be very candid with you. Well, some of your bosses may be here, but mine's are. So we'll be very candid. So that's my advice on that.
Like I mentioned, I'm with Pacific Life, and I think the best approach that they can have in terms of recruiting more Black women is to make the environment in which the Black women who are wholesalers now really thrive. And Pacific Life has done a really, really good job at giving me the flexibility. I know I've had a couple of people come up to me and be like, oh, I've seen you on LinkedIn and, like you're out here and you're doing well. And they have been so encouraging in terms of just creating a spot for me to be creative and for me to really be, my authentic self. And like, these two ladies mentioned, for a while, I didn't think I was going to be an external because in my mind, being an external was a bro job. And I'm like, I don't know how to golf. I'm not out here with the bros. I'm not a bro. I can't do it. So I think the more that Black female externals are in the forefront, saying, hey, we've done it. Hopefully the next generation is looking and say, well, if they can do it, then I can do it, because it's literally just a matter of representation. If we're in the forefront, we're doing what we need to do, we're being successful, then the numbers are just going to come in naturally, I believe.
I would definitely agree with that. And when I first started, I remember I was told consistently from a few that you should look at wholesaling or you should look at management, and I had no idea why, and I didn't know what some others saw in me, but there was something that they saw. And I was really fortunate when I started with Prudential that I had a few managers tap me along the way and introduce me to divisional sales managers, also to a couple of female wholesalers that did not look like me, but they were female wholesalers. And I was just able to get an idea of what their day-to-day looked like. And then from there on, I remember having a conversation with an external, and I was like, I want to do that. Like, I don't really know what you do, but I want to do that because it sounded fun. You get to drive in the car and take people to dinner and meet with people. So it sounded like a cool job. But I think more of really just leaning in on like the mentorship of bringing, like I had that fortunate ability to be able to be guided by a few individuals and introduce me to female wholesalers and introduce me to what wholesaling was, because again, I had no idea what it was. So I would say something that, that I think quite a few companies could work on too would just be more guidance and more mentorship there.
Awesome. We touched on it a little bit, but I want to dig in a little deeper because you've each touched on it. What advice would you give young ladies? Maybe they are in the financial services industry currently, maybe they are in college and aren't really sure what they're going to do. What advice would you give them to advice and encouragement to join and be a Black wholesaler?
So the advice that I would give is to give it a shot. So you never really know what's going to happen. I remember again going along the way of starting on the inbound team and then becoming an internal wholesaler and then becoming an external. And every single point, I remember saying to my manager at the time, I'm not ready for that. There was a lot of self-doubt that I had. And I had, again, very fortunate managers that told me, you're ready for that next step. And if I hadn't have taken that next step or just taken that shot, I wouldn't be sitting here today. So I think just going for it, and also again, just leaning into your own ability and really taking that opportunity.
Awesome. I think the best approach in terms of really deciding if this career path is for you is to have a really, really good understanding of yourself. Because I think a lot of times when you're in college, you're just kind of thinking like, okay, which job is going to be the most lucrative? Where can I have the most success? Where can I make the most money? Have the best lifestyle? But we really don't take a lot of time to really assess like our personalities. Because for a lot of times you can say, well, okay, well, I'm quiet, I'm shy. I don't really think that I would, do well in such a sales role. But you may be on the quieter side, but you may be really self-disciplined. You may may be really skilled at relationship building, even though it may not typically look like what you think relationship building looks like from an external standpoint. So I think the better assessment that you have of yourself and your natural skill set, the more you're going to be able to nurture those qualities and then see if that's going to play out in terms of a career in wholesaling.
Yeah, that's a hard question. I've been sitting here like, how am I going to answer that? What you said, though, I like how you said that. If you are, we're speaking to girls that are focusing on finance and thinking about getting to this field. Same. Assess your personality. Figure out what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. When you know those things, you're already the head of the game right there because you know where to focus and what you're good at. I would also say it's super important to have a mentor or, maybe someone you don't know well, but you kind of are watching from a distance what they're doing. I kind of have done that, maybe lurk on somebody a little bit, to see how they're doing, and learn from that. Like if you've watched a show and you really like a character, you kind of maybe emulate that a little bit. So you could do that with people you see professionally as well. If you're seeing someone carry themselves a particular way or, how they're having conversation. Those are things you can practice and make it natural to you. You don't want to be exactly like that person, but you can make it natural to you to where you're building that confidence. And another thing is just take a chance on yourself. You gotta just do it. What's the worst that can happen? Someone says no. Who cares? We hear no all the time. Oh, not all the time, but some people say no. But you move on. You move on with life. But if you always have that in the back of your head, like the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, no one wants to live like that. So if it's on your mind, like even a hint of it, just start taking that path. Just go for it.
I will say this. You don't need to know it all before you do it. Because that's something I struggled with, and I think as just women in general, we're preparers, right? We want to say, well, I got to know all of this. I have to know every answer to every question that I think I might get this week. You're not going to know it, and that's okay. And no one expects you to know it. I think that's, if I could, my wholesaler brain, like 5 misconceptions about wholesaling, right? No one expects you to be Jim Cramer, right? Nobody expects you to know every single thing, because I'm positive they don't know every single thing, right? What they expect from you is to come prepared. What they expect from you is to be professional. What they expect from you is to do what you say you're going to do. And so if I was to talk to you, and I'm happy to, younger Black females who are trying to get into this role, just because you feel as though you don't know it all, I promise you, the person next to you who's going for that role, who's interviewing for that role, who thinks, nah, I know everything, they don't, right? They know just as much or maybe equal as what you do, it's the same. But it's about the confidence that you have in yourself to know, like we were talking about yesterday in the meeting, knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know. And if you can continue to learn things that you don't know and identify things that you don't know and learn them along the way, that's how you progress. That's how you build. That's how you grow. But to get started, you don't need to know everything. You don't need to know everything about everything, and just, take those steps and grow along the way.
Awesome. Ladies, thank you so much. I looked down and I was getting ready to ask if anybody had any questions, and then I realized that our time was over because we're having so much fun. I want to just say thank you. Thank you all for being willing to share your stories, share your advice. My cup is literally running over now, so thank you. As we've all mentioned, we're very, very approachable. If you do have questions for us, we are at the conference. Please tap us on our shoulders, ask us about our stories. We're more than willing to share. Please tap me on my shoulder because I'm an introvert, and the more you tap me and make me share, the better it will be for me. So with that, I will turn it back over to Mr. Hall.